Welcome, everyone, to the very first episode of the MetaManiacs Show here on MetaManiacs. This is the show where we talk about trading card games. This is for trading card games fans and by trading card game fans. So I am your host, Dan Green, and I am here with two co-hosts today. I have Mike, the Pied Piper.
Hi, everyone.
And Dillan Straube.
Hi, I don't have a pseudonym.
So, guys, since this is the first episode, I wanted to start by kind of explaining what we're going to be doing in this show going forward. So if you give me a moment here, the MetaManiacs Show, like I said, we're talking about trading card game topics. And it's going to be sort of a different topic every week, but this is going to be a weekly show and something that we hope you guys want to tune back in for as much as you see fit. So occasionally, most of the time, we're going to be talking about just wide general trading card game topics that apply to all sorts of trading card games. And myself and my co-hosts are going to bring their bevy of experience playing lots of different games. Co-hosts are going to be rotating through occasionally. You're going to get to see some new faces, but a lot of familiar ones. And occasionally we will do some different subjects, like perhaps a deep dive into certain card games or interviews with certain people who are more famous than us. Which will certainly be more fun for you guys. So there's a special kind of form to how these are going to work. What you're watching right now is the basic or short form discussion on whatever topic we're going to talk about. And what you'll see is that in addition, we're going to have what we're going to call an expanded version of the episode. And typically that's going to be released exclusive to our patrons on Patreon. So if you are not a patron yet, that's totally cool. If you want to gain access to those in the future, down in the description here, you'll see a link to our Patreon. And for just $2 a month, you'll have access to those as well as all the other great benefits we have. Now, for this first episode, we are going to make the expanded episode free for everyone. It's going to be available right on our YouTube here, so you can check it out, because I wouldn't want to pay for something if I don't know what it is, and I think you guys should have a chance to see it first as well. So this first one is going to be freely available. After that, and not every episode will have these expanded versions, but when they do, they'll be on our Patreon. And we do hope you guys enjoy those and find them valuable and interesting to listen to. If you don't want to, that's okay. Our goal here is to hit all of everyone's main points about whatever subject we're talking about. We're not trying to hide anything or anything, but you may find some more fun banter and discussion and a bit of a deeper dive into the subjects if you go check those out. Okay, so with all that said, for our very first episode of the MetaManiacs Show today, we are talking about a very simple subject. It is why we love trading card games. Trading card games do have sometimes a unique perception, let's say, from certain people, especially in the tabletop hobby, and especially today with the way people are starting to look at loot boxes and gaming and everything, and various predatory, as they'll be claimed, and certainly is not false a lot of the time, practices in selling things to players of games. Trading card games can sometimes get a worse reputation because of that, but all of us do love trading card games for various reasons, and I just thought it'd be fun to kind of go through and talk about what those reasons are. So what I'm going to do is start with, let's go, Dillan. I'm going to have you go ahead and lead us off in this conversation. Why don't you let us know, why do you love trading card games?
I mean, so primarily, I really enjoy thinking and having games that are mind games, and TCGs. I think the amount of variability that they really bring to any table is incredible. That's another reason I find myself geared towards those sorts of games. You can play battle royale games that, a lot of people get driven towards them because there's a lot of variance, and TCGs are just that, but every single game, all the time. And I think that's definitely like my primary reason. I think it's really fun to outthink somebody, and you get a lot of gotcha moments that I'm not sure that you get in other games. I mean, you definitely get outplays in more physical games as well, but when it's 100% mental all the time, I think that's such a cool thing that is pretty exclusive.
Let me throw this in there. So what about the people who like to play board games, as you can see behind me. What's the difference between a TCG and a board game as far as sort of the mind games and stuff you're talking about, the variability you're talking about?
One of the reasons that TCGs are so expansive, and we'll talk about this in a later time, but relatively my experience with TCGs is minuscule compared to your guys's. But one of the things that is a pro and a con is set rotation and new sets, and that means more money, but it also means that there's an increased variance every third of a year to half a year worth of the game. So the game's always evolving. Whereas a lot of board games have, like a lot of people, I guess today I would say more people play video games than board games. And I would say like it's like a DLC where board games get add-in packs and support expansions, where TCGs are built to support nothing but expansions. I mean, so I feel like there's always new stuff to learn and to figure out and to play with.
Sure, that's great. Did you have any other things you want to bring up here, Dylan, or is that
reasons that I'm really into TCGs?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, so like we talked about the Battle of Wits, I think one of the things that I wouldn't say is exactly a problem for me, but accessibility is a big thing. And I'm not in a wheelchair, but if I were, I might be able to play wheelchair basketball. But if I weren't, I could play a TCG. I could play the Dragon Ball Super, Final Fantasy, Magic the Gathering. We could play whatever. And you don't have to be an incredibly able-bodied person to be a highly competitive player. In fact, I would say probably 1 out of every 5 people that I play with or against has some sort of physical disability, whether that's a back injury or a knee injury that would prevent them from pursuing glory in like another sport. And I think that's really, really cool for people. And that I personally like the competitive nature of the TCGs for me. And I'm a pretty physical guy, but I think allowing others to do it. And some people would say like you need men's leagues and women's leagues, and like in basketball because of physical disparities or stuff like that. And there's a lot of numbers that go into saying that that's true. But in TCGs, I can play against anybody. And as long as both of us are, healthy-minded people, it's even playing ground. And whoever put more time in and more effort and practice and has, got a little more sleep the night before is going to do better.
And sometimes just a little more luck.
Yeah,
which is certainly an element of all TCGs that separates them from things like chess.
Yep.
And it's something that I think we'll have an episode at some point in the future just purely about luck because it's a fun topic.
"Quote unquote" variance.
Yes, great points, Dylan. Thank you, Mike. How about you? Why do you love TCGs?
To be honest, one of the greatest things that I love about TCGs is the people that you get to meet. I met you guys through TCGs. I met many of my friends back home in Michigan playing card games. I absolutely just the people that you get to meet, and then the memories. I have so many good memories of playing TCGs that will follow me for a lifetime. I could spend hours upon hours going into some of my favorite memories, but the interaction that you get to have with people, the people that you get to meet. And then, Dylan, just to kind of expand on what you were saying is like the cards, like how you can format different types of decks and different strategies. And then you get those aha moments where you get to outsmart someone. You have it. I know like you have that where like, I got this match. I got this match. I got this match. I love that. I love that feeling. And then, even after the tournament, even if you don't do really well, or if you do really well, or you don't do really well, just being able to hang out with friends afterwards and just spending hours just talking with them like, oh man, I did this play, it was awesome. Oh, I should have done this. And, that's what really excites me about TCGs. And that goes with any card game. And I've played a multitude of them and just love it. Absolutely love it.
Great.
Sure. That was another point. That was one of the points that I had, but I knew Mike was going to bring it. 8 out of 10 of my favorite travel stories in my entire life. If I had to put 10 of them, 8 of them would be TCG related. 2 of them would be with friends that I met from TCGs. So
For sure.
For sure.
Well, if you don't mind, I think this is a perfect segue for me. I had a few points I wanted to bring up, and my points are definitely kind of pointed more towards the people who may be watching this and thinking, I would never like a TCG. I don't get why people like them. I don't want to spend the money on them. But I think what I've found in my couple decades of playing TCGs is that the camaraderie that comes from everyone having sort of a shared obsession is like the best way I can put into it, because truly a TCG is, if you're going to get into a TCG and you're going to be serious about it, which you can totally play a lot of them casual, and you're like, oh, well, I'll pick up a starter deck, whatever, I'll just play a few games with friends every now and then. If you are the kind of person who wants to get into it and say, new set's coming out, better buy it all, better make sure I have the whole set, which we are when it's the right TCG, and it's the ones that we want to get into. I apologize if you can hear that, my cat is meowing. Okay, great. When you get into it that way, you and everyone who you share this fellowship with, of you're buying all the sets, you're buying everything that comes out, you're building decks, you're constantly off the clock. Even when you're not playing, you're thinking about decks, you're thinking about strategies, you're trying to come up with new ways to sort of break the metagame, because you're a metamaniac. You throw it in there. That sort of fellowship, that sort of experience is not easily replicated in other tabletop gaming hobbies. I have all these board games. I will play a board game, even if it's one, there's some where I'll start to think about them afterwards and be like, man, there were some really good strategies in that game. I kind of want to explore what happens if I focus on buying wood, whatever. Sure, makes it sound boring, but I promise it, I do get into that stuff, but I'll find after a few days, I'm just not thinking about it again until next game night, and then maybe we'll crack it open again. I do not do the same thing where I'm in the middle of doing some important task, and suddenly I think, oh, what if I played that card in that deck? That would be a totally new thing, and I have to go explore it. I start putting a deck together. I start just theory crafting everything. And the fact that you can get in this room with a bunch of like-minded people in that way, where you're all people who do that kind of thing, I feel like it's just a deeper connection that you have with these people. And I think that's what leads to us having these great memories of taking these trips with these people who are all like this, people who we're all friends with. We all connect over these games. And even if you don't connect over the same game, it's a shared experience that you can connect with. If I'm not keeping up with Final Fantasy, for example, is one where I think the game's awesome. I did buy a deck at one point. I have played a couple games or whatever. But Dylan can still come to me and talk about something that's going on in Final Fantasy, and I can connect with that. Even if I'm not familiar with what the current metagame is exactly. Because I understand that experience. And another part of the experience that's really interesting that is kind of related to that is collecting in general. I'm going to bring up minis games now. Games like Warhammer are games where people will say the game is one part of the hobby, and then the painting, the artistry, or whatever is the other part of the hobby. And you're smiling. I swear you can hear my cat right now.
We just heard it now.
She needs a lot of attention.
It's a feature.
Yeah, it is a feature of this podcast this show that you will get periodically. But in this game, in TCGs, collecting is another part of the hobby that a lot of people do enjoy doing. Not everybody, but it's fun to have things to chase, things to look for, things that you're excited to get, and that is one reason people do want to spend more money on it. And the last thing I'm just going to add in, because you guys kind of talked about expression, creativity, which is something I was going to talk about in deck building, and the fact that TCGs have a giant pool of cards that allows, by their nature, you have to have bigger pools of cards, and that means there's more things to explore and play with and find things that weren't intended or whatever. But the cat has entered the room. But TCGs, in that nature of collecting and the nature of searching for the right cards, makes it so that even if you collect the entire set and can build any deck or whatever, it isn't long until there's a new one to start doing that with. So that goes towards what you were saying, Dylan, of like, it doesn't ever feel like you've finished, which I guess can be viewed as a bad thing. But for a lot of people, if this is your hobby, this is what you want to get into. I mean, it's going to keep you going constantly, and board games will come up with a new expansion periodically. Maybe they'll stop at some point. Maybe it's just once a year. And if I played board games, a single board game, as much as I played a single card game, I would be done with it in less than a month, probably.
Yeah. For sure.
And so I think those are sort of the elements of trading card games that really make them special. And the fact that their model requires us to buy a lot of cards in order to kind of support them makes it that's what enables them to be released as frequently as they are. Which
developing
go ahead.
Expensive.
Part of the beast.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. And developing, getting art for cards, certain card games that use original art, especially. I mean, I don't envy the people who have to do that, because you have to buy commission art basically for every single card that you release. And if you don't do that, you're relying on a license, and you have to pay for the license. Then, if you're a game like Universes, you have a million licenses. You have to pay for a new license every single set.
Yep.
So in some ways, they're not even possible to do without having the sort of model that they have. And it can be done in LC. People always say, especially like with the popularity of living card games right now, well, they should just make it an LCG so that everybody can get everything, right? Netrunner, Lord of the Rings, what's that Legend of Five Rings? I'm trying to think of, all these LCGs have come out that the problem is they still don't necessarily sell well enough to be able to support this kind of thing. They don't have the releases as frequent, and they lack the expansive card pool to come up with those, unique decks as frequently as you can with a trading card game. Go ahead, Dylan. I think you have something to say on this.
Especially, like, it's not just developmental costs; it's also tournament structure. Like, how are you gonna pay for an organized play if you're not getting an influx of extra cash that you can put back into your environment to further? Like, it's obviously it's a business, but like it's expensive, and like if you're not, the less you have on the initial investment, the less you can put back in.
And the more that's available for prizing in a tournament structure, the more competitive that game is. Mm-hmm. And the more competitive that game is, the more that draws in that certain type of people who are there for that. Which is why I think you often find LCGs are played casually by a smaller subset of people, and TCGs are played more competitively by a larger set of people. And so if that's the experience you want to have, a TCG is what you need.
Well, yeah, and then the other part of the TCG, I know from personal experience, I love the chase. What I mean by the chase is like when you're buying that booster box, or you buy that, you're opening those packs and you're like, oh man, where's that ultra rare?
Yep.
Where's that SCR? Where's that money card? I mean, I love that. Like,
you sure do.
A lot of people will just go, buy packs at their local store and like, all right, and everyone's huddled around. It's like, okay, what'd you get? That experience, like, you can't get that like anywhere else. I just love that. It's like, just the hype, just that few, 10, 15 seconds opening the pack and going through the cards. I love it.
Absolutely. Well, guys, I think that really hits our main points. Dylan, sorry, you have something more?
Yeah. Before we drop off entirely, I wanted to mention there were two things that you mentioned that I think were super important that I'm not sure that we really divert. So you said it brings all of us together as like a collective, like everyone has like a hobby, like an obsession that they're all together on. One of the things that I think is incredible, I mentioned earlier about like it's handy capable, right? Like people who are disenfranchised can get into that. But I have met muscle heads. People of all sorts of colors. It's all predominantly male, which I wish if we could come around as a community to get all of your girlfriends and your sisters and people who like games to try these, because every girl who I've ever seen introduced into this game has loved it. Or these games, like they've all been like, oh wow, the initial investment of like I have to learn 1,600 cards is, can be horribly scary. but like give them a 50 card deck and be like, this is what you do, you know. So I think it's really cool that it's not just, oh, we're all united under a cause. It's a pretty large wealth of personalities and individuals that TCGs actually bring in, much like or other games. Like, it's just a gaming thing that collects people together.
And I'm noticing a lot of these TCGs now, they actually have, like, you'll notice like team battles where like you'll have 2 or 3 different people on the team and
Those
you
are
come
cool.
together as a team. I love that. I love that when you're going to your teammates, it's like, and you're like, okay, hey, let's do this. Let's add this card. Let's remove this card. Let's come together as a team. I'm loving that TCGs are starting to do that, bring the team aspect into it, because I do think it's bringing a new subset of people, maybe that, more into the team.
That like a cooperative experience. Sure.
Cooperative. Yep.
All right, now Dan, back to you, sir.
Okay. Well, no, that was a really great point to make, and I'm glad you brought that up because inclusivity is important. You brought up many different things, but there is a discussion here about as a hobby, our inclusivity to women, which I am completely for, and I hope continues to expand. And I think we all need to do everything we can to remove any barriers and make it not intimidating for women to be joining as well, which the board game world has done very well so far. And, hopefully we can all work towards that future as well.
Every girl that's the slightest bit nerdy that I've ever dated is always interested in board games. I just wish like there was a way I don't know what's stopping that from tipping over to TCGs too.
Sure.
Yeah.
With all that said, guys, I think that's going to cover, like I said, going to cover our main points for this. Now, if you're interested, I'm going to have the link down below because, like I said, this episode's expanded content is going to be free, available to everybody. It's going to be right in the link in YouTube, in the description below. So go ahead and check that out if you want to continue to hear our thoughts as we sort of dive deeper into these subjects. Otherwise, thank you guys so much for watching. And stick around for more great TCG content from MetaManiacs. Subscribe if you want to see this frequently. We're at the point where we're going to be getting 4 to 5 videos or articles a week. We're pretty full here. So if you want to get great TCG content for all these TCGs that we love, as well as the weekly MetaManiacs show, go ahead and hit subscribe down below. It does help us out a ton, and we really appreciate it. Thank you guys so much for watching this, and we'll see you guys in the expanded episode.